This morning, you poured milk into a glass, or over cereal, or into your coffee, and you didn't think about it once. It's the most ordinary thing in the world. White, cold, boring. But the truth hiding inside that glass is one of the strangest survival stories your body has ever kept secret. Because for almost all of human history, that glass of milk would have made a grown adult violently sick. Not a little uncomfortable. Sick, cramping, doubled over, running for the nearest bush. To your distant ancestors, a tall, cold glass of milk wasn't a treat. It was closer to poison. So how did we get here? How did a species that couldn't stomach milk end up putting it in everything? The answer takes you back roughly 10,000 years into a world of hunger, animals, and one tiny accident hiding inside your own DNA. Let's start with your body, because your body already knows this story. When you were a baby, you lived on milk. You had to. And to break it down, your gut produced a special tool called lactase. Lactase is an enzyme, which is just a tiny biological machine, and its only job is to chop up the sugar in milk so your body can absorb it. Every healthy baby is born with it. Every mammal is. But here's the twist nobody tells you. For most of the animal kingdom, that machine has an off switch. Once a baby is weaned, once it stops drinking its mother's milk, the body slowly stops making lactase. Why keep building a tool you'll never use again? So the enzyme fades. And from that point on, milk becomes indigestible. That's not a defect. That's the default. That is how nearly every mammal on Earth is built. And for almost all of human history, it's how you would have been built too. And when a lactose-intolerant adult drinks milk, here's what actually happens inside them. The sugar slides down into the gut undigested because there's no lactase left to break it apart. It arrives whole in the intestines, where it becomes a feast for the bacteria living there. They swarm it, they ferment it, and as they do, they pump out gas and they pull water into the gut. That is the cramping. That is the bloating. That is the desperate run to the bushes. It isn't the milk attacking you. It's the tiny creatures inside you throwing a party you weren't invited to. So picture your ancestors, not the ones from farms and villages, the older ones, hunters, gatherers, following herds, digging roots, cracking bones for marrow. For hundreds of thousands of years, no adult human drank milk, because no adult human could. There were no cows to milk anyway. The only milk in a human life was the milk you drank as an infant, and then it was gone forever. For 200,000 years, that was simply the human condition, born on milk, weaned off it, never to return. So what changed? About 10,000 years ago, something enormous happened to our species. In a few scattered corners of the world, people stopped chasing their food and started keeping it. They tamed wild sheep, they tamed goats, and eventually they tamed the huge, dangerous ancestors of the modern cow. And you should stop and picture those animals, because the cow in your mind is a lie. The wild ancestor of cattle was a monster called the aurochs. It stood taller than a man at the shoulder. It had horns longer than your arm. It was fast, it was furious, and it could kill you without slowing down. The gentle black and white cow on a milk carton is the tamed, shrunken descendant of one of the most terrifying animals our ancestors ever stood next to. And somehow, someone looked at that beast and thought, I will keep it, I will feed it, I will drink from it. At first, these animals were walking food. You kept them for their meat, their hides, their bones. A goat was a meal you didn't have to hunt. But a live animal is worth more than a dead one. And somewhere along the way, someone noticed something. The animal you kept for meat could also give you something every single day without dying. It could give you milk. And here is where it gets strange, because those early farmers were lactose intolerant. All of them. Their bodies shut off lactase in childhood, just like everyone before them. So the first humans to look at a bucket of fresh animal milk were looking at something their guts could not handle. So why did they drink it anyway? Imagine the world they lived in. Farming was new, and farming was fragile. One bad harvest, one dry season, one raided store of grain, and a whole village could starve. Hunger was always close, and in a world like that, a source of food that renewed itself every morning was worth almost any price. Milk was calories. Milk was fat and protein that walked around on four legs and refilled overnight. When the grain ran out and the children were crying, a sick stomach was a price you paid to stay alive. There was another reason too, one that's easy to forget from a world of clean taps. Water could kill you, standing water carried sickness, and a bad drink from a bad pool could empty a person out until there was nothing left. But milk came warm and fresh, straight from the animal, clean at the source. In some hard places, milk wasn't just food. It was the safest liquid a person could put in their body. So they drank it, and they suffered for it. But they survived. And then, in one person, somewhere, something tiny went wrong. Or rather, something tiny went right. Deep inside human DNA, near the instructions for building lactase, there's a kind of switch, a stretch of code that tells the body when to shut the enzyme off. And in one individual, long ago, that switch broke. A single letter in 3 billion changed. And because of that one change, their body never got the message to stop making lactase. The enzyme stayed on, into childhood, into adulthood. For life, that person could drink milk as much as they wanted. No cramps, no sickness, just food. We call this lactase persistence, which is a fancy way of saying the milk machine never switched off. And in a starving farming world, it was very close to a superpower. Think about what that means. When famine came, most people had one source of survival food that made them ill. But this person, and anyone who inherited their broken switch, had that same food with no downside at all. More calories, more survival, more children who lived. And those children carried the change too. Now ask yourself a question. In a world of regular hunger, who lives and who has more surviving children? The people fighting their own stomachs, or the people for whom milk is just easy, clean fuel? The answer rewrote the map of our species. That one tiny change spread through human populations faster than almost anything else we have ever found in our DNA. It is one of the strongest examples of natural selection ever recorded in humans. In some regions, over just a few thousand years, this rare accident went from a single person to nearly everyone. It didn't spread because milk tastes good. It spread because in the wrong season, milk was the difference between a family that made it and a family that didn't. And this happened more than once. In the herding lands of northern Europe, a version of the switch appeared and spread. In parts of Africa, among cattle-keeping peoples, different versions appeared, entirely separately. In the Middle East, more still. This is one of the eeriest things about the whole story. Evolution reached the same answer over and over, in different places, in different people, because everywhere humans kept milk-giving animals, the same brutal logic applied. In some of those cattle cultures, the bond with the herd went further than we can easily imagine. There are herding peoples who live so closely with their animals that they drink not only their milk, but their blood, drawn carefully from a living animal and mixed with milk into a thick, rich meal that can carry a person through the hardest, driest months. To them, the herd wasn't a farm. It was a walking pantry, a bank, a lifeline with a heartbeat. And milk sat at the very center of it. But most of the world never took that path at all. And that's the part that flips everything you assume. If you can drink milk as an adult without a second thought, it's tempting to think that's just how humans are. It isn't. Across the whole planet today, roughly 2 out of every 3 adults still lose most of their lactase after childhood, exactly like our ancient ancestors. Across much of East Asia, the great majority of adults are lactose intolerant. In many parts of the world, a grown adult chugging a glass of cold milk is the strange one, not the norm. So the truth is upside down. Being able to drink milk isn't the human default. It's the exception. It's a recent, regional accident that happened to spread in some places and never arrived in others. If you can drink it, you are the mutation. And there's something else worth noticing. You are the only kind of adult animal on Earth that does this at all. No wild-grown animal seeks out milk. None drinks the milk of a different species. A grown human pouring the milk of a cow into a bowl is doing something no other creature in the history of life has ever done. We didn't just learn to tolerate milk. We built entire cultures, entire cravings, entire industries around a food that, by every older rule of nature, adults were never supposed to touch. And that raises an obvious question. If most early farmers couldn't handle milk, and the magic switch was still rare, how did whole communities live off their herds while they waited thousands of years for their genes to catch up? They were clever. They found a way to cheat. The sugar that makes milk so hard to digest, the lactose, isn't just sensitive to your gut. It's sensitive to time and to tiny living things. Leave milk alone and it doesn't just spoil, it transforms. Bacteria move in and begin to feed. And as they feed, they devour the lactose itself. They eat the very thing that was making people sick. And so, long before anyone understood a single word of this, humans discovered the workaround. Let the milk sour into yogurt, and much of the lactose is already gone. Strain it and age it in into cheese, and more vanishes still. A hard, aged cheese can carry almost none of the sugar that a fresh glass of milk is full of. Suddenly, even a lactose-intolerant person could eat the fat and protein of milk without paying for it later. We found the first faint traces of this trick baked into ancient pottery, thousands of years old, still holding the chemical ghost of milk fat in its walls. People were processing milk into something gentler on the body long before their bodies evolved to handle the raw thing. Culture solved the problem first, then, slowly, biology caught up. Sit with that for a second, because it's the whole story in miniature. Faced with a food they couldn't digest, humans didn't just wait for evolution, they invented cheese. They changed the food to fit the body, while generation by generation the body was quietly changing to fit the food. Two solutions to the same hunger, running at once, one in the kitchen and one in the blood. So, let's come back to that glass in your hand. If you can drink it without a thought, you are carrying a message, written more than 10,000 years ago. Somewhere back there, an ancestor of yours lived in a place where survival ran through the udder of an animal. They or their children carried that broken switch, the one that keeps the milk machine running for life. It kept them alive through a hungry season, and it was passed down quietly through hundreds of generations, all the way to the fridge in your kitchen this morning. And if milk turns your stomach, that too is a message. It means your ancestors survived a different way. Different food, different land, a story where milk was never the thing that saved them. Your discomfort isn't a weakness. It's just the older, more common human blueprint. Unchanged. You are, in a way, closer to the original. So the next time you pour a glass, look at it for 1 extra second. It looks like the most ordinary thing in the world. White, cold, boring. But it's really a survival letter, sealed inside your own body, written by a hungry ancestor who found a strange new way to live and passed it, drop by drop, all the way down to you.